Throughout human history, there have been many that have claimed to fight against the devil himself and won, securing their faith in their beliefs of a divine power. Interestingly enough, there appears to be just as many stories in which people divulge their sudden success in wealth and power and credit it to that of selling their souls and making a deal with the devil. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be talking about 4 mysterious deals that people have made with the devil and what they received in return. The legend of the Codex Gigas. One of the most well-known stories concerning that of a person making a deal with the devil is the existence of the fabled Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas, also referred to as the Devil's Bible, was supposedly written by the devil himself after a desperate monk summoned him in exchange for his life. According to the legend, back in 2013 AD, a monastery in Bohemia that made up the monks of the Black Cloth, a radical Christian group of whom devoted their belief to God by performing gruesome acts of starvation, isolation, and self-mutilation, accepted the terms outlined by one monk who promised to write the greatest book in a single night. The reason for this promise was due to the fact that the monk of the monastery had broken such a sacred rule of their monastery that the sin itself was covered up. After the other monks had convened, they decided that the punishment for the monk would be to go to wall him up alive, essentially trapping him into a mausoleum. This led the monk to quickly promise the monastery that he could earn redemption by crafting the largest book that held all of human knowledge, including magic, medicine, information on herbs, as well as the entire Bible, in only one night. The monastery agreed to this outlandish promise on the basis of making a deal with the monk. They would allow him a chance at redemption if he could create the book in one night, but that if he failed, they would continue with their punishment regardless. This led to the monk working throughout the night in a moment of panic, gathering all of the supplies necessary and binding the massive book before realizing that it would be humanly impossible to complete the task. At the stroke of midnight, in his desperation, he performed a dark ritual and summoned the devil himself. He quickly promised the devil his soul if the devil himself would use his supernatural powers to create the book and save him from death. In an instant, the devil accepted the deal and wrote the entire book in a single night, fulfilling the promise and saving the life of the monk. Interestingly enough, in the modern day, when experts took the time to look over the book, they found overwhelming evidence that the entire book was written by a single author in an incredibly short amount of time. The expected amount of time to work on such a massive book was expected to be more than a single author's lifetime. However, the entire piece has a consistent style of writing, of which is only possible to accomplish by having a lone author, using the same type of ink made in the same way as is common with books with a single author, and has an entire page of a drawing of the devil as a reference to the credit of the author. Johann Georg Faust's deal. The strange tale of Johann Georg Faust holds a number of details that have left many wondering if such a person had ever once existed in the first place. In fact, back in the early 17th century, many had believed that the tale of Johann Georg Faust was nothing more than a fictitious piece, only later to be confirmed by additional accounts made by a variety of other individuals. According to the story of Johann Georg Faust, he had started his education at an incredibly young age, first studying to become a physician. It would not be long before he would boast to be one of the greatest doctors of his time, and would go on to learn a variety of other fields, such as becoming a doctor of philosophy, a brilliant alchemist, an astronomer, an astrologer, and then finally, feeling dissatisfied with the pursuit of science, one of the greatest magicians the world has ever known. In multiple accounts of Johann Georg Faust, he was turned away by the churches of his time that claimed he had given his life to the evil of magic after he began boasting to anyone passing by that he was such a powerful magician that he could replicate every single miracle that Christ himself had once performed. Bored with his power, he used his magical ability to summon the devil himself and worked to make a deal with him. The deal was that he would exchange his soul with the devil if the devil would join him and serve him for a full 24 years in return. This would lead the devil to conjure up anything that Johann Georg Faust desired, including food, drinks, and a variety of other wants and needs. After roughly 16 years of service, Johann Georg Faust attempted to break the pact, but was persuaded by the devil to enjoy it and renew the contract for the remaining 8 years after he had conjured up Helen of Troy to marry him. On the last day of the deal, the devil claimed that by midnight, Johann Georg Faust would die. As foretold, when midnight came around, many heard a loud explosion come from the room of Johann Georg Faust, and his body found in pieces all throughout the area. The story of Robert Johnson. In American history, the blues movement was not only responsible for one of the key changes in the music industry in young America, but would also allow the poverty-stricken communities to gain a voice for themselves in the country. It is because of this that many credit the blues movement as being one of the most influential music movements of its generation, allowing those of whom stuck in poverty and facing the daily struggle of lower-class economic status to finally have their voice heard amongst the masses. Additionally, there are many that credit this popularity of the genre to one man, a Mr. Robert Johnson. Mr. Johnson has been described as one of the greatest musical talents to have ever lived, often compared to as the Jimi Hendrix or Elvis Presley of his genre. Oddly enough, there appears to be a legend surrounding Robert Johnson that tells of a desperate man looking to carve a name out for himself and doing whatever he could do to achieve such success. According to many, Robert Johnson had sold his soul to the devil for the exchange of attaining the soul of blues, allowing him to become the greatest blues musician of his time. Johnson himself would later confirm such tales in his songs, Traveling Riverside Blues and Crossroads, in which many believe that he leaves an overwhelming number of hints that tell of his deal with the devil. Robert Johnson would later die at the young age of 27 after reaching the peak of his fame. This has led many to believe that perhaps his deal with the devil had reached its end after his fame had reached its end as well, resulting in his life being taken and his soul being paid in full. Niccolo Paganini's skill. Often referred to as the devil's violinist, Niccolo Paganini gained fame throughout the world for not only being the greatest violinist that has ever lived, but for claiming that, even before he was born, his mother made a deal with the devil to ensure that Paganini would be the greatest violinist that the world has ever and ever will see again. According to the legend, when Niccolo Paganini was born, he came out, as most doctors described, in terribly sickly form that would bring with it chronic illnesses for the rest of his life. However, his form was a blessing for the mother, as his hands and arms were enlarged enough to allow him to play octaves on the violin with a single hand, as his fingers could stretch much further than others. Niccolo would go on to play the violin at only 5 years of age and learn the cello at age 7. His first solo public performance was at the young age of 11 and would go on to be taught by one of the greatest teachers of the violin by age 15. It was not long before the legend of the greatest violinist being born would soon spread across the entire world, as the young Niccolo Paganini would perform concerts alongside some of the greatest performers of his time. Playing on the rumours and legends, Paganini would confirm to his audience that the devil indeed was the reason for his brilliance. Other times, many had confirmed to have seen the devil playing the violin with him during his practice sessions behind stage. These rumours would continue to spread until one day, Niccolo would do the impossible. After having all of the strings of his violin completely snap, except for that of a lone string, Niccolo would then begin to improvise variations on that string, leading to him performing an entire song at 12 notes a second, the fastest pace in the world, on a single string. Many in the crowd fainted as they reported that Niccolo was capable of generating the sound of an entire symphony with one string, and so the rumours concerning his pact with the devil became fact after that very fateful day. But what do you all think of these strange and impossible to explain mysterious deals that people have made with the devil? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.